and Stuart. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, thank you. We're going to move to item 8, which is the opportunity to change the electoral system from first past the post to single transferable voting. We are going to be addressed on this. Please, can we possibly not have a huge debate about this? It's been to every one of the community boards, rather local boards, who are overwhelmingly in favour of sticking with where we are.
Your Worship, just for procedural.
But I don't want to actually stifle debate, but I do want to actually get home tonight if that's possible.
I'm about to help you, Your Worship, so I'm prepared to move A and C if there is a seconder for that.
Okay, it's been seconded by Councillor Foley and thirded by Councillor Henderson and fourth by me. Rightio. Very brief, please. Anyone who doesn't understand this shouldn't be here, but give it to us in short order.
Tēnā koutou, Your Worship and members. So the Local Electoral Act provides the opportunity for every council at this time through the electoral cycle to decide whether to change the electoral system. It does that by resolution. So this isn't a staff decision. We need to bring it to your attention at this time prior to every election. The report in front of you, we've tried very hard to set out what we see to be the pros and cons. The key features of STV to our mind are firstly to do with proportional representation if you have multi-member elections. That's due to a quota system. Any candidate who can get more votes that's set by the quota system can be elected. The other key aspect is the preferential voting. So it addresses the issue of wasted votes. You can indicate what your preference is. If your candidate that you have your first preference for is not elected, then your vote moves on to your second preference. We've attached the local board feedback, Your Worship, and I need to point out that by far the majority of the feedback from local boards is to stick with FPP from the point of view that it's a simpler system. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. It was tried on the health boards and was a devastating failure and has been dumped from them. Has anybody else got anything that absolutely have to put their hand up for? Oh, I've got it. Councillor Darby.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. I do take this seriously. This is about the representation of our citizens. This is a really important paper. I don't want to light over easy this paper. Warwick, as I've said to you, I feel this paper is, and I say this with great respect to you and Rose, it's got some gaps in it. It does have some gaps in it. And for me, I looked at the paper and I looked at 2 paragraphs on first past the post, and I looked at 19 on STV. And I guess I could go into that, but my question to you is there not a case for a much more in-depth analysis of this next time around with some robust research, both local, international, looking at the once were health boards through to Nelson, other places, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Denmark, etc. This comes very late, like the decision has got to be made now, and I don't feel like it's being made in the context of the broader question of representation. So my question to you is there value in this council committing to more thorough work, looking at international research and local, as I just mentioned, to inform our decision in, say, 2.5 years' time rather than 3 years' time?
Thank you for that, Councillor Darby. Your Worship, when we come to prepare a paper like this, something that's unknown to us is actually your appetite for doing a deep dive. We've put in the report what we believe to be the key issues, but if there's an appetite for a deep dive into it, by all means.
So, Chair, I'd like to put up an amendment by addition. I have circulated it, and I've tested this with some of the staff as well, and that is a thorough analysis of the 2 voting systems be undertaken following the 2005 election to support the identification of the best system to enable diverse representation. Thank you.
Okay, well, So we'll debate the amendment, because we've already got a mover and seconder for the main one, so that we'll debate the amendment. And
Point of
I've
order,
got-
Your Worship. Can I just get...
Hang on, well, I've got Councillor Stewart ahead. What? Oh, sorry, point of order, my mistake. Sorry, I didn't hear that. Councillor Newman, point of order?
Can I get you to rule on this, Your Worship, because it seems to me this amendment is a direct negative against the intention for C, because the analysis has been done on this paper. People might consider that the analysis isn't good enough, but the analysis, well, some people might think that, other people think that's too much, some people think it's about right, but the analysis has been done. And if the analysis has been done on this paper to inform a recommendation in relation to whether we keep with the status quo or to change it, and that's the work that's already been completed. A thorough I'm not sure who's going to fund this, by the way, but a thorough analysis that's sought with respect to the amendment appears to me to directly contradict the analysis that has been already undertaken, for which we would inform a decision. So if the paper is sufficient to inform a decision, I'm not quite sure why this amendment would be accepted for debate.
Warwick, do you want to say something about that? It's questioning your analysis of presumably being thorough. I'd hope that the analysis of the Chief Financial Officer before was also thorough.
Well, again, it's another question that we need to address when we're preparing reports, is how technical they should be. And usually we do the technical stuff in the background. But what I hear Councillor Darby saying is that he'd like that to be transparent, so that all the members could see the analysis.
Are you speaking to this amendment?
Yeah, if that's okay. I don't think this is a direct contradiction, because it's saying it's an addition, so it's a D. So certainly my understanding in seconding the amendment is that I'm intending to vote for A and C, and then the idea is that we come back to this and do that deeper dive after the next election. One of the reasons I support that is that we're going through the representation review and the potential reorganisation, and actually right now is not a great time to be changing the electoral system when we don't know what the actual electoral structure is going to be. But once we have made those decisions over the next couple of years and seen how that plays out in 2025, that's a better time to be having that deeper dive. So I don't think it's necessarily saying that the report now isn't a thorough analysis. Warwick himself said he makes an assessment, all staff do all the time, on the level of report that they put before us. I think he's made the right assessment here. I don't think we are interested in a deep dive on this right now. The idea of the amendment is to signal that the best time to do that would be after the next election, and to give warning of that. So that's where I think it's going. It's not a direct contradiction.
No, I've just had it double checked. It's not a direct contradiction. It is after. So what I'll do is I'll accept that. It's been moved and seconded, and I think it's been developed. I know that Councillor Stewart wants to speak, but I think you want to speak about the first.
I was actually going to support more or less what Councillor Newman has actually said, and with the STV, what we've seen with health boards, it sort of discouraged people from voting, and I think first past the post seems to work, and I think it's going to be very expensive to do all of these studies, and I think the studies out there already, we know that people don't like voting STV.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to put the amendment because it's been proposed. I'm sorry. On to your amendment.
So thanks, Mayor. I needed to grab it before you closed it. So I don't think any of us can hand on heart say that we know much about first past the post versus STV. So you've got the winner takes all, which we all got here by winner takes all. And it's natural that you lean towards what got you here. It's the safety net. But I'm not thinking of me and what got me here. I'm actually thinking of our citizens of the future and the diversity of representation that is required in this incredibly diverse city, where currently most votes are totally discounted. They're worthless votes because they weren't for the winner, which takes all. And all I'm saying is let's have a more thorough analysis rather than this paper, which I think has got a lot of gaps in it, but total respect to the writers. I think we could understand this more thoroughly. That's all I'm saying. Let's understand this more thoroughly in about 2.5 years and be informed as to what is the best system that provides the most diverse representation of candidates putting themselves up, knowing that they've actually got a chance to be recognised rather than that big celebrity, possibly incumbent, that's well known, that's got to be beaten and it's impossible, that they view that it's impossible. So all I'm saying and asking for is to look at the systems. We haven't done that to date. Anecdotal messages of health boards, etc. I don't know whether it was the STV system or the health boards. It was just the health boards. Well, they've gone now. But if you look at some international research, STV, it came in Denmark a century plus ago, and they've stuck with it. You know, there are jurisdictions where they've got high voter participation, and not just voter participation in council processes, because they have got systems that embrace people. I want to know more. Surely you want to know more. And so whoever's sitting here 2.5 years hence can actually make a decision that adds value to the electoral system in the 2028 elections. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you for that. I won't take offence at being called a celebrity, but Councillor Turner actually wants to talk about the amendment.
Thank you. I just want to make the observation that what I know is that we're trying to get more people to vote because our voter turnout is so low. And in West Auckland, the voter turnout for the health board was dismal, including myself, I must admit. And it caused a few arguments in my family as my wife and I argued how you filled the thing out. So I just want to make it simple and get more people to tick that page. Thank you.
Councillor Watson talking to the amendment.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to pick up on this notion of gaps in the paper or the kind of lack of international examples that might inform us. I don't think that's really the case. If we look at some of these comments in the paper that go initially to the notion of how proportionality benefits of STV are usually explained in terms of voters voting in groups for candidates that represent the voters' groups. Well, I'd certainly be interested to know what those groups are in my ward. Like who are these groups that band together to vote for respective candidates? Because then it follows on point 26. If people do not vote in groups, then the benefit of STV very much comes into question. And the examples of overseas, of Ireland and Scotland, a lot of the candidates are party-based, very clearly party-based. So that might well serve those countries. That's certainly not the case in Auckland Council, where there is some party-based, but generally speaking in the wards, most of the people kind of avoid being tagged with a party, and that definitely therefore wouldn't trigger that notion of somehow opening it up to groups that might otherwise be shut out. The other point it makes is the one I think that Councillor Stewart was alluding to is the complexity for the voter, and we're given an example of how this might translate to a real-life situation, which Councillor Newman might be familiar with. Manurewa Local Board, 8 vacancies for 29 candidates. Under STV, the voter would be faced with deciding not only which of the 29 candidates should be elected, but how to rank them. That might be a rather challenging logistical exercise for anyone involved in that, especially when one of the greatest questions or most recurring questions you get during an election is, who do I vote for? Because I don't know anyone. I'm not quite sure how you rank people if you don't know them. And that's, unfortunately, is a reality of the super city. Where it has been tried, Hamilton City Council, 2022, moved to STV, experienced the lowest voter turnout nationally at 29.4%. So it didn't exactly have great repercussions in terms of voter turnout, quite the reverse, in fact. What we also find with international examples of STV is that we have more informal votes as a result of the complexity, so people don't understand it, and it's a struggle as it is, and that there is the very real risk of ballot order bias, given the rush or the desire to get the thing filled in. The people at the top of the table get ranked first because it's an easier thing to do. So I would disagree that somehow the examples of overseas have not been canvassed. I think they have been canvassed, and more importantly, there has been some attempt to apply them to what might happen in reality in Auckland, which, let's face it, is a struggle in the 13 years of the super city, where people don't even know what local board area they're in. They don't know what the ward is. They don't know the difference between local board and councillors in many cases. And in terms of election turnout, if we want to prove election turnout, I can think of the instance in my ward in the last election where there were some new, young, diverse candidates who were standing, running against me and Councillor Walker. And one of the first experiences they found out was that in the biggest part of the ward, the Albany, Greenhithe and Hobsonville, the 3 sites for signs, which were the only place they could put up their signs, they were removed. So in that massive big chunk of Albany, there was no place supplied where people could put up their election sign to let them know people who they were. So maybe start with a few basics before moving to STV. Thanks.
In view of our diversity, I think that all names will be in Mandarin. Councillor Henderson, please.
Thank you. I'll be quick, Mayor. Yeah, look, I think diversity around the table is important. I'm kind of glad that we're talking about that. I just think that we're using the wrong tool for the job, or attempting to, if we go down the STV route. Diversity, I think, is best by driving turnout up. I think that's the number one thing that we're doing. I don't always agree with Councillor Turner, which I acknowledge, but I think he's made perfect points on that one. I'd suggest a couple of things that might do the job a bit better. Single member, smaller wards, I think, is something we could explore if we want politicians that are closer to their communities, which does reflect diversity and does encourage diversity, in my view. Look, I think that we talked about party tickets. You won't be surprised I've got a different view to some of my colleagues, with the greatest of respect, because election through a party ticket means you have transparency and results through a selection process that actually encourages diversity. It's designed that way. So you do get results that way if that's what you're looking for as well. That's another way to do it. I understand that that's not everyone's cup of tea, though. But look, ultimately, I'd say that voter turnout is our number one issue. STV makes voting more complicated, and so it would definitely not work for my community. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Foley, a diverse person herself.
Kia ora, thank you, Chair, and thank you, team. Just speaking to the amendment, I acknowledge the gaps that Councillor Darby is, identifying in the report. That's not to say the report is not thorough or not a good analysis, but our staff have also said that they have to do these reports every 3 years. So I don't think we need the amendment in order to give that feedback to our staff that what we want to see in the next report that they have to do anyway is to fill those gaps. So for me, the gap is in that DHB comparison, not so much what's happening overseas, because what's happening overseas may not be that relevant for us here in South Auckland and West Auckland. My experience on the ground has been that STV is terrible. And what I saw just anecdotally and through our local board is that we had a certain turnout, which was already low for the local board and councillors, but the DHB voter turnout was abysmal. And the high number of invalid votes was always troubling. So I'd much rather see that gap filled in your next report in the next 2.5 years that comes before us, that looks at that analysis, comparing what happened with the DHB vote with, you know, the mural and other votes. Perhaps doing a little bit in terms of what's happened overseas and the research there. And I know that the local government review people have done a lot of work in that space as well. So you may just need to grab some of that stuff and bring it over. And I know the Mayor wants to move me along, so that's all I've got to say.
No, it's very well done, very well said. Thank you, Councillor Feely, Councillor Bartley, and then Councillor Baker, the Southern
Yeah, okay.
group are rising.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I appreciate all the discussion about diversity. Last time I looked, I don't look like everybody else around the table except for Councillor Foley. So, and that came through on a first past the post system. But my experience is that the STV system with the DHB was pretty bad. People gave up, they didn't understand it. And so I think whatever we can do just to make it easy and accessible, because not everybody knows where a post box is these days. So that's what I see the issue is. And some people don't vote because they don't see the relevance of it. Those are the things I would rather have the discussion on. So I won't be supporting that addition. And yeah, I thought people, you know, my understanding from people on the ground was they wanted to move away from political party involvement in council. This would probably mean more of it. And also acknowledging our local government guru Warwick over there and your work. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Baker, would you like to sum up his Manukau?
Well, I was actually going to ask a question because I thought we were still doing that. But just in terms of, I support A and B, and in terms of C, isn't that, in looking at the terms of reference of the Joint Governance Working Party, isn't that best dealt with through that, where we talk about considering governance matters of mutual interest to the governing body and the local boards, and to report its findings report its findings. Is that not the best place for us to deal with this as we go through the changes that Councillor Ferry was talking about? That's really your decision, and Councillor Ferry might have a comment.
Just to say, if people are interested, it's certainly something we could pick up once we've finished the local board funding equity issue and the representation and reorganisation review, which are quite hefty workloads, but there'd certainly be a gap after that. So I'm very happy to pursue that, and noting Councillor Baker's on that committee, so he's committing himself to more work too, so thanks, mate.
Excellent example of passing the buck there. Thank you, Warwick. I'm going now to put the amendment, unless you want to have another go.
Given that information, that I'm happy for the amendment to be changed so that it's referred to the appropriate.
Okay, so
Phil, can you just, sorry, Chief Executive.
A point of order, Mr Mayor. We've had an amendment put up, the exact wording of which has been debated. We're now to have a vote where the wording's getting changed at the last time. That doesn't strike me as...
And I'll just take a division on the C.
Order.
There's no point of order. I'm just saying that I'll just take a division on the C as it stands. Thanks, Mayor.
Yeah. That's
thank you for your forbearance, Councillor Darby. What I'm going to do is put the...
As the seconder, I'd like to withdraw my seconding, because I think we have got to a good place with this, actually, in terms of it going to the Joint Governance Working Party. So if someone else wants to pick up seconding it, that's fine, but I think we just, you know, we've had the conversation, we've got to a good place. There's no reason to fight over the wording of C.
I will second the amendment just so that we can have that division and resolve what people think about this.
So I'm taking the lead of Councillor Ferry, and I'm pulling the move, because I'm confident now that it's being handled by Councillor Ferry's committee, and we've had a good conversation about it.
It's an excellent result.
Value has been added.
Yes, and time has been used. So I'm going to go back to the governing body, receive the local board, blah, 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 and that we do not change the electoral system for the next ones. And so I don't know if anyone wants to have a blooming division, but I'll try and have it. So we're about to, just for those who've fallen asleep, we're about to say that we're not going to do anything about it until after the 2025 election. Is that all right? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary? Bingo. Thank you very much. I think we'll
Against.
have...
Can you record against, please?
What?
Can you record me against? Against,
yes, of
against
course you
the,
can.
the
My
second
humble
part, not the-
apologies,
not-
Councillor
not receiving
Darby.
the report.
Yes, we will record Councillor Darby is against. What I'm going to do is, the next thing is the health and safety audit, but while Paul's assembling himself for that, we're going to have a 5-minute health and safety break to just check the plumbing. And there is a problem with a power outage at the council office, so that Wi-Fi is a bit dodgy.